I'd like to welcome in Laura. Evan, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Paul.
Great to have you both here. Laura, I'm going to start with you. We'll talk about the event towards the end of our segment, but Laura, talk about your role with, well, first of all, talk about the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues, what your mandate is, the work you do, a bit of the history, if you don't mind, and of course, then what your role is.
You bet, Paul. So Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues is here to support 163 community leagues across the city of Edmonton.
163?
163, yeah. We were created in 1921, and 105 years later, we're still going. So it's incredible. You know, and I'm always inspired, Paul. Since I've been here 8 years now, we formed 6 new community leagues across the city. So
fantastic.
This is a model and a way of being in Edmonton that is unique and is something that's really important for Edmontonians. And so we're here, and we're here to support them. We're here to make connections with other organizations to help uplift the work that leagues are doing. We've got probably close to 9,000 volunteers across the city who are volunteering their time, about 300,000 hours every year, to just keep these places going. So keep the doors open, keep the lights on, make sure those places are activated, that they've got programs and activities for people to do close to home. That's the whole idea of community leagues, is things to happen close to where you live and connect with those neighbors. So we're thrilled to be here today, Paul, and talk about the tournament that's coming up.
Well, Laura, thrilled to have you with us. And I would say about the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues, when my family first moved to Edmonton back in the late 80s, and my sons started to get to the age when they were going to be involved in basketball, Community League basketball, as it was known then, was the thing. It's evolved into the Edmonton Youth Basketball Association, but it used to be just the community leagues. And Bill Babelwall, I remember going over to Bill's house on Friday afternoon, and he had cards all over his living room with all the schedules and trying to herd the cats all around the city to get them to basketball games. But it was such a meaningful part, certainly, of our family's basketball journey. And to see the fine work and the important work that's done today by a whole bunch of people, yourself included, Laura, and the staff that you work with, walking the walk, it is really something special.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, you know, sports were really fundamental to leagues for many, many years. And, you know, the sports world's changed. I'm sure we'll get into that with Evan a bit too, but the sports world's changed in Edmonton. But I think, you know, we're seeing now an interest in especially that sort of easy to access, very accessible sport being back close to home. You know, families are stretched a lot right now. Traveling across the city is very normal for people who have kids in sports, and we're seeing an interest in bringing that back a little closer to home, having opportunities, you know, in people's neighborhoods for them to, you know, do the 3-on-3, you know, a little bit of shinny hockey, whatever sport it is. How can leagues step back into sport in a way that's accessible for them, that's not going to burn them out, but make sure that, you know, people have things to do and places to go and people to connect with close.
And I would just add one more factor to that, and that doesn't cost a lot of money to do. Absolutely. Like you said, families are stretched both fiscally and time-wise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that is what I love the most about the EFCL, and I like the fact that the pendulum has, you know, which swung completely to club to organizational participation. Now the pendulum is coming back to, as you're describing, Laura, the community and easy access to recreation that is in your neighborhood and isn't expensive. That's really important. And I think that's a great segue to bring Evan into this. Evan, you've, of course, been involved in sport in a variety of levels throughout your career, now heading up the Sport Edmonton. And Sport Edmonton has always been a bit of an enigma. You know, I think for a lot of people who know of Sport Edmonton, for a lot of years, you know, under Gary's leadership, which, you know, he put a lot of time and energy into trying to galvanize sport in the community. But no, I don't think he really had a clear mandate or a clear direction. Reed Clark stepped in, I think, you know, set off a lot of momentum in terms of making noise about Sport Edmonton and trying to get people to rally together in the sport community. But what I see you doing, Evan, is trying to really clearly identify what sport Edmonton can be in this community as a connector.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Paul, and thanks for having me on. We're certainly excited about what the future holds for Sport Edmonton. We're a civic agency responsible for working with the city on sport and recreation issues. That's sort of our big mandate and our overarching sort of reason for existing. And then finding ways for us to actually, bring some life to the community level of sport and bring some connectivity, which you said, which is really the key thing that we're trying to do, which is to connect the right people with other people, and set the table for organizations to have success and to get kids playing and to get adults playing as well, and making sure that all of the various silos that are involved in sport talk to each other in one form or another. And that's a pretty big task. There's no question about it. It's a disjointed space. I don't think there's, any way to get around that fact. But what we're trying to do is to look at it from a 360-degree view and understand these are the people that should work together. These are the different connections that make sense. This is how it plays together with the city's vision. And I say that as, administration's approach, council's priorities, who are the major community players that we should be working with. One of the first that I identified was EFCL, and great to work with Laura on a variety of different things, sort of holistically on that play where you live concept, which she touched on, and which is, I think at times we've lost sight at a high level as to why we're involved in sport and recreation. It's because it's fun. It's because it's good for you. Like fundamentally, those are the two reasons that you do it. And it builds an immense sense of community when you're playing with your neighbors. So we want to get back to that, and we want to be able to connect the right people to make those things happen, in small pockets. And then it takes a large community to make noise about that and say, this is what we want. So, that's what we're trying to do. And there's a variety of different mechanisms that we're trying to accomplish that connectivity through, specifically on how do we use local community sport events? How do we elevate them? How do we integrate a community mindset? How do we integrate, a return to the economy and making sure that we're doing things that are beneficial to Edmontonians holistically, whether it's accessibility, affordability, and to the businesses that sustain our city. So, when I say it like that, it sounds like a lot of work, and it's going to be, but I'm up for the challenge with good partners, including yourself and Laura and a whole host of others.
You're listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick on Sports 1440. Laura from EFCL and Evan from Sport Edmonton join me today. I was trying to think of how I could encapsulate what we're going to talk about in terms of our event that we're working on together, the Hoop City 3x3 EFCL Festival, which will be happening down at the Fan Park on July 11th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. It will be open to U13 to U18 age groups. There'll be a boys division and a girls division. It's $75 to join. And quite honestly, if that $75 is a problem for any team, just contact us. We will make sure that you play. The goal is not to make money. It is to make sure that you play. And we want to highlight and celebrate the community league. We want to, but we also want to do, and this is Laura and Evan, the idea that I came up with is that what you're both trying to do and what my organization, the 3x3 Basketball Association, are trying to do, along with other great organizations in the city, is to plant strategic and intentional mustard seeds that have the opportunity to take root and slowly and steadily grow into something much bigger. But you have to start with the little mustard seed. And we've been talking about this, Laura, for a number of years. And we finally got the cats in the corral. And we have great partners, the Oilers Entertainment Group, the Oilers Foundation, City, Downtown Vibrancy. We've got great partners who are buying into the notion behind 3x3, which has a very long tradition now in Edmonton. We are a leader globally and certainly nationally in 3x3. But bringing the community in, that's what's exciting about this event.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. We're excited about this too. And I think you're right. It's become a bit of a perfect storm, right? Sometimes, we have conversations and it's trying to sort out how we can make things work. And I think, to our point earlier, leagues have not been in the space lately of putting together teams just with the kids that are in the neighborhood, right? So soccer is a great example, but people do intentionally register for soccer. It's got a long history in our community, and it's a really important partner for all of our organizations. But basketball is new in that community space. And so I'm excited because we've got 25 basketball courts on league land across the city. That's not including the ones that sit right beside a league at the school. Those are additional ones. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, with 3-on-3 or 3x3 to really get kids active, have some fun, and I think this festival is really going to kick that off and build some good connections, right? Get people talking, thinking about 3-on-3, what they can do right at home. So I'm excited, Paul. I think it's going to be fun.
Well, and I love the way you framed that, Laura, because that would be the desired outcome, is that along with the kids that can come and play and have a great time playing, we're hoping community organizers will be curious enough, because the great thing about 3x3 is, and you know what, and 3x3 to me is an overarching view, because it can be one person with a basketball, it can be 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3x3, it can be 4-on-4. It doesn't have boundaries attached to it. It shows the versatility of basketball. And what I love about this sport is everybody who participates has to dribble, pass, and shoot. You can't hide like what happens in organized 5-on-5 basketball, right, and you get one or two great players and other kids that may be behind in their development that end up running down the court and never touching the ball. This, you can't hide. You're a part of it.
You can't hide. You're a part of it. I love it. I think that's great, Paul. Yeah.
And Evan, from your vantage point, you're trying to bring Sport Edmonton into this, I think is so critical from my vantage point, because I've been familiar with the unfolding of Sport Edmonton. James Rosnow, who took over as the president of the board of directors, and I think really tried to guide the ship into a new, more strategic direction. And, I think what you're doing now is taking the work Gary did, leading into James, leading into Reed, now into yourself, leading and guiding this forward of picking strategic points of entry to really find ways to connect, like you described before, because you're not in the event business, you're in the connection business. And this is one of the sports of many that Sport Edmonton can help people connect with.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Paul. And we're not in the running of events or running of programs. We're in the let's create some connections, let's have some ideas, and let's lay the foundation to allow those events and programs to succeed and become sustainable and to benefit Edmontonians. So, with your event, and I've said this to you privately, but I strongly believe that basketball is one of the sports in our city, particularly around 3x3, that has the greatest potential to achieve the things that I think we all want to see, which is accessibility. That's accessibility in terms of finances. That's in terms of the number of people you need to make a team. That's in terms of where it's delivered, whether that's through the Community League's 25 courts, which I think are tremendous civic resources for us. Or if that's a large scale event that we host at a place like Expo Center and we get courts in there, we do some big things. Like, it's time for us to have some meaningful conversations as people within the sport and community building spaces as to what we want to get out of it. And I take it back to sort of my two fundamental points, which is it's fun and it's good for you. And, those are really important things in life, whether you're 6 years old or 60 years old. If you don't have fun and you don't do things that are good for your physical health, that's not what you're looking for. You need those things in your life from playground to podium, we talk about as well. It's like, we cannot forget the fundamental reason why we're all involved in sport and recreation. And that's not to say there's not a time and a place for large scale events and club events and competitions and getting better and honing your skills. But you better start dribbling at a community league court before you're playing, at MSG in game 4 of the NBA finals, right? Like, it's got to start somewhere. And that's where I think it should start. That's just fundamentally what I believe, is it should start with your neighbors. It should start down the street, and it can lead you to big places.
It can lead you to big places, and it also can lead you to the important small places that you and Laura are both describing in terms of community connection, in terms of physical health and well-being. I referred to the pendulum metaphor earlier. I think the way the pendulum has swung over time with the switch from Community League to Edmonton Youth Basketball Association. They do a great job. switching to all of the clubs that are around the city, and the emphasis on programmed play and learning being the exclusive way that you play basketball. And I think that's the way the pendulum has swung. And I think what's swinging back, as you indicated, Laura, in your comments, is now people are becoming more aware. Wait a second, I can play close to home, and I don't need to spend all that money. And by the way, not every kid's going to go to college or on to something else. Maybe there's something just about unorganized or loosely organized or smaller organized events that has its charm and fun, and going and tying it into your comment too. It's got to be fun and it's got to be good for you, Evan, like you said before.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And, we're seeing, we've seen our schools change, right? Kids don't go to the same school. Neighborhood schools don't exist in the same way in our city anymore. So I think it is vital. We are seeing such a time of disconnection, and I think we're seeing a time of people wanting to reconnect and really recognizing that I don't want my kids traveling across the city to visit friends. I want them just walking down the street, right? I often hear about people saying, "Oh, I remember in the old days when you knew where the kids were because you saw the pile of bikes on the sidewalk." And that doesn't happen as much anymore because our kids don't know each other. And so community leagues are that place where people can reconnect again. Those kids can get to know each other. And if it's at 3x3 court, on a Saturday afternoon, I think that's amazing, right? I mean, it keeps them busy, keeps them connected. Then when they are out in the community, people know them. That keeps our community safer. People know each other. All those things really contribute to vibrant places across our city. It doesn't matter if you're in an older neighborhood or a newer neighborhood, right? When you go out and you meet people that you recognize, you feel a better sense of connection. You feel safer, and it can all start with 3x3. It's incredible, right? But you can see how that grows so quickly.
It really can. That was really, really well put, Laura. And the only thing I would add to it as well is one of the other big benefits is it gets kids off screens. And that's a huge problem. And I mean, and I think societally we are aware now as we watch across the globe, countries are banning screen usage for young people, because now we're seeing this is a genuine threat to the socialization skills that kids are developing. What better socialization settings than physical activity among people in your community? So I'm going to give each of you a final comment. Evan, any final comments?
I'm just excited for this and a variety of other things that are percolating, sort of behind the scenes. I think there's more to come in this space. And it's not to say we're waxing poetically about, the good old days on everything, but there are certainly elements that we need to bring back. And there's then a time and a place for all of these different ways to engage in sport and recreation. And I think we need more of these grassroots, homegrown, build it in your neighborhood approaches, because they're going to complement the whole system, frankly. And, the bigger the funnel is, the more, the more you're going to push out at the other end, whether that's elite level athletes or people who are playing club or just people who play for life, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a whole segment of the population that plays when they're young, there's a greater likelihood that a good number of them are going to play when they're in their adulthood or into their later years. So, very passionate about, the things that we're trying to work on and accomplish collectively. And that's, I guess, the big emphasis from me is that there's lots of good ideas in isolation. And oftentimes when they're in isolation, they stay there and they don't actually blossom. So it's ideas like this where you work collectively with 3 or 4 heads on a screen and you get things done. So very excited about the event in July that you're putting on and the role that we can play and how it can be a little bit of a seed for more to come.
Well, and well put. A couple of quick thoughts. Ebbs and flows. Yes, you can't go back to the good old days, but you can learn from the good old days and implement what worked then that still fits in now. That's number one. And number two, you do need megaphones trumpeting this message loudly, consistently, and impactfully, in order to get people to realize and understand that just because this is they're being bombarded with about, you got to do it this way, you don't. You really don't. You can do it another way and have as much or more fun at a lot less cost and a lot more personal benefit. Laura, over to you. Final thoughts.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Evan. I mean, I think we've said it all, right? I mean, I think I'm excited for the next chapter here together. I think these sort of relationships and opportunities when we as organizations can come together trickle throughout our city, and we have great impact across our city. So, but it's not Evan and I that are running all these things. It's people that live in communities who feel passionate about these things, that get inspired and say, I can do this too. And I think that's part of what EFCL has always been about, is that civic leadership is, how can you step in and how can you step up and how can you make your neighborhood greater? And I think this is just one of those pieces, and sport is a huge part of lots of people's lives, and there's lots of great things about it. And I'm just excited to see this chapter to grow again. So yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Evan, for all your support with the community leagues and sport in general. Yeah.
Laura from the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues and Evan from Sport Edmonton, thanks so much today. Again, the event is Hoop City 3x3 EFCL Basketball Festival down at the Fan Park on July 11th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., $75 to enter your team. Like I said, if you have a problem with that, if you can't afford it, just let us know. We want you to play. You can have up to 5 players on your teams. We got all the different age categories. The admission into the grounds is free. It's going to be a phenomenal time. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody there. Evan, Laura, thank you again for joining us today. Really excited about the upcoming event.
Thanks for the invitation, Paul. It's great to be here. Yeah.
Thanks,
have a good day.